The moving boxes sat stacked in what used to be my sewing room, cardboard evidence that I was no longer welcome in my own home. "Mom, you have to understand," my son Daniel said, not quite meeting my eyes. "This isn't about you. It's about Rachel and me needing our own space as a couple." Rachel, his wife of 2 years, stood behind him with her arms crossed, her expression a mixture of triumph and carefully manufactured concern. "We're not throwing you out, Eleanor," she said in that syrupy voice she used when other people were around. "We're just helping you transition to a more independent lifestyle. You'll love having your own place." I looked around the living room where I'd raised Daniel alone after his father died, the walls I'd painted, the floors I'd refinished, the kitchen I'd renovated with money from my late husband's life insurance. The house I'd signed over to Daniel 3 years ago because he'd convinced me it made sense for estate planning. "When do I need to be out?" I asked quietly. "End of the month," Daniel said quickly. "That gives you 2 weeks to find a place." 2 weeks? "We'll help you look," Rachel chirped. "I saw some really cute senior apartments. I'm 63 years old, Rachel. I don't need senior apartments." "Well, you need something affordable. On your Social Security, you can't afford much." She glanced around the house. "My house. This place is really too big for one person anyway. Daniel and I are planning to have children. We need the space." Children. They were going to fill my house with children and raise them where I'd raised Daniel. And I'd be where? Some cramped apartment across town? Invited over for supervised visits with grandchildren who'd be taught that grandma was difficult, that grandma couldn't handle living on her own, that grandma had to be put somewhere else because she was in the way? "I'll start packing," I said. Daniel looked relieved. "Thanks, Mom. I knew you'd understand." I didn't understand, but I was good at pretending. That night, after Daniel and Rachel had gone to bed, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea and my cell phone. I called my attorney, Martin. We'd been friends for 40 years, since before he went to law school, back when we were both young and figuring out life. "Eleanor? It's almost midnight. What's wrong?" "Martin, I need you to check something for me. The house, the one I signed over to Daniel 3 years ago, is the deed actually in his name?" A pause. "You don't remember?" "I remember signing papers. Daniel said it was for estate planning, to avoid probate. But Martin, I need to know, did the actual transfer go through? Is the house legally his?" "Hold on." I heard him typing. "Martin kept digital records of everything. Eleanor, according to my files, you signed a quitclaim deed in principle, but we never filed it with the county. You were supposed to come back in to finalize everything, but you never did." My heart started pounding. "So the house is still in my name?" "Technically, yes. The paperwork was drawn up. You signed your intent, but the legal transfer was never completed. Why? What's going on?" I told him everything. Daniel's ultimatum, Rachel's smug expression, the 2-week deadline to get out of my own house. Martin was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Eleanor, that little bastard is trying to steal your house. He's my son. He's a thief. He convinced you to sign papers you didn't fully understand, probably hoping you'd never figure out the transfer wasn't complete. And now he's evicting you from property that's still legally yours? What can I do? You can fight back. File for a legal eviction, reclaim your property, throw them out." His voice was hard. "Eleanor, Daniel is counting on you not knowing your rights. Don't let him get away with this. If I fight back, it'll destroy our relationship. He already destroyed it when he threw you out of your home." After we hung up, I sat in the dark kitchen for another hour thinking. Daniel believed the house was his. Rachel believed it too. They were planning their future, children, family, the whole dream, in a house they thought they owned. But they didn't own it. I did. And I could take it back whenever I wanted. The question was, when? I spent the next 2 weeks playing along. I looked at apartments, let Rachel drive me to viewings of sad little studios with thin walls and sketchy neighborhoods. I nodded and smiled and pretended to consider each one. "This one's nice," Rachel said at a particularly depressing one-bedroom with brown carpet and a view of a parking lot. "It's perfect," I lied. I packed my belongings carefully. Important documents, birth certificate, marriage license, insurance papers, photos and mementos, clothes and personal items. But I also did something else. I documented everything. Every conversation where Daniel or Rachel referred to their house, every plan they made for renovations, every comment about how they needed me gone so they could start their real life. I recorded them without their knowledge. Martin had assured me it was legal in our state as long as one party consented, and I was that party. "I can't believe she's finally leaving," Rachel said. I'd left my phone recording in the living room while I was supposedly in my bedroom packing. "I know. I love my mom, but she was suffocating us. Now we can finally live our lives. Should we tell her about the baby?" My heart stopped. "Baby? Not yet," Daniel said. "Let's wait until she's settled in her apartment. I don't want her getting any ideas about moving back in to help with the baby." God, that would be a nightmare. They laughed together, bonding over their relief that the burden of me was finally going away. I listened to the recording 3 times that night, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. This wasn't just about needing space. This was about erasing me from their lives completely. Fine. If they wanted me gone, I'd be gone. But first, I'd make sure they understood exactly what they'd lost. Moving day arrived. I'd rented a storage unit for most of my belongings and a small, extended-stay hotel room for myself. Temporary, I told Daniel and Rachel, just until I found the right apartment. They helped me load boxes into a rented truck, their relief palpable. "You're going to love having your own space, Mom," Daniel said, not quite looking at me. "Independence is important at your age." At my age. Like I was ancient instead of 63. "I'm sure I will," I agreed pleasantly. Rachel hugged me, the first time she'd voluntarily touched me in months. "We'll have you over for dinner soon, once we get settled." "That would be nice." I climbed into the truck and drove away from the house I'd lived in for 35 years, watching it disappear in my rearview mirror. Daniel and Rachel stood in the driveway, waving. They had no idea what was coming. I gave them exactly 3 weeks to get comfortable. 3 weeks of them settling in, making plans, telling friends about their house. 3 weeks of Rachel posting photos on social media about home ownership and finally having our own space. 3 weeks of Daniel calling me occasionally to check in with guilt-tinged duty calls that lasted exactly 7 minutes each. 3 weeks of me staying in that hotel room, documenting everything, building my case. Then I called Martin. "I'm ready. File the eviction notice." "Eleanor, are you absolutely sure? Once we do this, there's no going back." "I'm sure. They threw me out of my own house. Now it's their turn. Give me 2 days to draw up the paperwork." The eviction notice was delivered by a process server on a Tuesday morning. I was sitting in a coffee shop across the street from the house, my house, when it happened. I watched through the window as Daniel answered the door, took the envelope, opened it. I watched his face go from confused to shocked to panicked. 3 minutes later, my phone rang. "Mom, what the hell is this?" "Hello, Daniel. What's wrong?" "There's an eviction notice. It says the house is in your name and we're illegally occupying it. This has to be a mistake." "It's not a mistake. The house is in my name. It always has been. The deed transfer you thought happened 3 years ago, it was never filed. The house is legally mine, and I'm exercising my right as the property owner to reclaim it. Silence. Then, you can't do this. I can, and I am. You have 30 days to vacate the property. But you said, I said I'd sign the papers for estate planning. I never said the transfer was complete. You assumed it was because that's what you wanted to believe. Mom, please. Rachel is pregnant. We're having a baby. We need this house. Congratulations on the pregnancy. I'm sure you'll find somewhere nice to raise your child, somewhere affordable on Daniel's salary. You vindictive old bitch. I have that recorded, by the way, along with several other interesting conversations you and Daniel had about me, about how relieved you were to get rid of me, about how I was suffocating you, about how you didn't want me anywhere near your baby. I paused. Would you like me to play them back for you? She hung up on me. I sat in that coffee shop for another hour, watching the house, wondering if I felt guilty. I didn't. The next 30 days were spectacular. Daniel tried reasoning. Mom, I know we handled things badly, but we're family. We can work this out. You had 30 days to work it out when you threw me out. Now, I'm giving you the same courtesy. Rachel tried tears. Please, Eleanor, I'm sorry. I was wrong. We were wrong. Just let us stay. No. They tried legal action, hired an attorney who looked at the paperwork and told them they had no case. The house was unambiguously mine. The quitclaim deed had never been filed. They were legally month-to-month tenants at best, and I was well within my rights to evict them. They tried family intervention. Daniel's aunt, my sister Linda, called me. Eleanor, what's gotten into you? Daniel says you're throwing them out while Rachel is pregnant. Did Daniel mention that they threw me out first? Gave me 2 weeks to find a place because Rachel needed space? Well, he said you agreed to move out. I agreed because I didn't have a choice. They made it very clear I wasn't welcome. So I left. Now I'm reclaiming what's mine. But they're having a baby. Then they should have thought about that before evicting a 63-year-old woman from her home. I paused. Linda, whose side are you on? I'm not on anyone's side. Yes, you are. You're on theirs. Because they're young and pregnant and sympathetic. But I was the one thrown out, and no one cared about that. She didn't call back. Day 28 of the 30-day eviction notice, Daniel and Rachel finally started packing. I drove by the house and saw moving boxes stacked on the porch, the same way my boxes had been stacked 5 weeks earlier. Poetic justice. On day 30, I showed up with Martin and a locksmith. Daniel and Rachel were loading the last of their belongings into a U-Haul truck. The house needs to be completely empty by 5 p.m., Martin said, per the eviction order. We know, Daniel said bitterly. We're almost done. Rachel wouldn't look at me. Her eyes were red from crying, her face puffy. She was showing now, maybe 4 months along, enough that strangers could tell she was pregnant. I felt a twinge of something, not quite guilt, maybe sadness for the grandchild I'd probably never know. But I pushed it away. They'd made their choices. This was the consequence. At 4:47 p.m., the truck was loaded. Where are you going? I asked. Apartment across town, Daniel said flatly. 2 bedrooms, all we could afford on short notice. I'm sure you'll be comfortable there. Mom, I just want you to know you've destroyed our relationship. After this, I don't know if I can ever forgive you. That's funny. I was thinking the same thing when you threw me out. They drove away without saying goodbye. The locksmith changed the locks. I walked into my house again, and stood in the living room. It looked different.
Daniel and Rachel had painted, bought new furniture, made it theirs in a dozen small ways. But it was mine. I'd won. So why didn't I feel better? The first week back in the house was strange. I unpacked my belongings from storage, slowly reclaiming each room. The sewing room where my boxes had been stacked became my sewing room again. The guest room went back to being a guest room, not Rachel's future nursery. I erased them methodically, painting over their color choices, rearranging furniture, making the house mine again. But it felt empty, haunted by the ghost of what I'd lost. Not the house, but my son. Daniel didn't call, didn't text, completely radio silent. Linda called once, 3 weeks after the eviction. "Eleanor, Daniel and Rachel are struggling. That apartment is small, and Rachel's having complications with the pregnancy. She needs to be on bed rest, but their place doesn't have an elevator, and they're on the 3rd floor." That sounds difficult. Is that all you have to say? What do you want me to say, Linda? I should let them move back in, give up my house again? You're being impossible. I'm being consistent. She hung up, didn't call again. 3 months after reclaiming the house, I got a letter, handwritten, from Rachel. "Dear Eleanor, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I wouldn't blame you if you threw this letter away without reading it. But I need to tell you something. I had a miscarriage last week. The baby is gone. The doctors say it wasn't because of the stress of moving or the apartment or any of that. They say these things just happen sometimes. But I can't help wondering if maybe it wouldn't have happened if we'd stayed in the house, if we had more space, if things had been different. I'm not writing to blame you. I'm writing because I finally understand what we did to you. Losing this baby, losing something I wanted so desperately, made me realize what it must have felt like when Daniel and I took your home, your space, your security. We were cruel. We were selfish. We thought only about what we wanted and not about what we were taking from you. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I understand now, and I'm sorry. Rachel." I read the letter 3 times. Then I cried for the first time since this whole thing began. Not for myself, but for Rachel, for the grandchild I'd never meet, for the loss that transcended our conflict and made everything else feel small and petty. I called Martin. "I need to do something for Daniel and Rachel." "Eleanor, don't you dare give them the house back." "I'm not giving them the house, but I want to help them. They just lost a baby. Whatever anger I have, it doesn't extend to that." "What do you want to do?" "Find out where they're living, set up a fund for them, medical expenses, security deposit for a better apartment, something, but do it anonymously. I don't want them to know it's from me." "Why anonymously?" "Because if they know it's from me, they'll either refuse it out of pride or accept it and feel obligated. I don't want either. I just want them to have help when they need it." Martin was quiet for a moment. "You're a better person than your son deserves." "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just a mother who can't stop loving her child even when he deserves it."
6 months after reclaiming the house, Daniel called me for the first time. "Mom, it's me. I know. I don't know what to say. This is weird." "It is weird." A long pause. Then, "Rachel told me she wrote to you about the miscarriage." "She did. I'm sorry for your loss, Daniel." "Thank you." His voice cracked. "Mom, I've been thinking a lot about what we did to you, about how we treated you. And we were wrong. Completely. Totally wrong. We took advantage of you. We pushed you out of your own home. And then when you fought back, We acted like you were the villain." He took a shaky breath. "Rachel and I have been in counseling, working through things, and one thing we keep coming back to is how badly we treated you. I appreciate you acknowledging that. Is there any way, any possibility that we could start over? Not go back to how things were, but maybe try to build something new?" I thought about that, about the months of anger and hurt, about the satisfaction of reclaiming my house and the emptiness that came with losing my son. "Maybe," I said finally. "But Daniel, if we do this, it has to be different. Real boundaries, real respect. I'm not moving back in with you, and you're not moving back in with me. We're adults with separate lives." "I understand. And you need to understand something else. This house is mine. Legally, completely mine. I've had the deed properly filed with no ambiguity. If something happens to me, it'll go to charity, not to you." Silence. Then, "Because you don't trust me. Because I want you to build your own life, your own home, not wait around hoping to inherit mine. That's fair. More than fair." He paused. "Mom, there's something else. Someone helped us, anonymously, paid our medical bills from the miscarriage, gave us money for a security deposit on a better apartment. We don't know who, but we have suspicions." "Oh? Was it you?" I could lie, keep the secret, but Rachel had been honest with me in her letter. Maybe honesty was what we needed now. Yes, it was me. Why? Because you're my son, and Rachel is my daughter-in-law. And losing a child, that's not something anyone should face without support, regardless of what happened between us. Daniel was crying. I could hear it in his voice. "Thank you. Thank you so much." "You're welcome. Can we see you? Maybe coffee this weekend." "I'd like that." The coffee meeting was awkward. We sat in a Starbucks, not quite making eye contact, not quite knowing what to say. Rachel spoke first. "Eleanor, I need to apologize. Really apologize. Not just for the letter, but in person. What I did to you was inexcusable. I was young and selfish, and I thought having space was more important than having family. I was wrong. Thank you for saying that. I want you to know the apartment we're in now, the better one, we're making it work. It's not the house, but it's ours. We're paying for it ourselves, building something that actually belongs to us. That's good. That's how it should be." Daniel added, "We're saving for a down payment on an actual house that we'll buy with our own money. It'll take a few years, but we're doing it right this time. I'm proud of you for that." We talked for an hour, surface stuff mostly. Their jobs, my retirement hobbies, nothing too deep. But it was a start. As we were leaving, Rachel said, "Eleanor, would you want to have dinner sometime? At our place? It's small, but we'd love to have you over." I'd like that. Dinner at Daniel and Rachel's apartment became a monthly tradition. They'd made the small space cozy. Plants, photos, furniture they'd bought themselves from IKEA and thrift stores. "It's not much," Rachel always said. "It's honest," I always replied. That makes it perfect. Rachel had gotten pregnant again. Carefully, nervously, she called me at one of our dinners. "We're terrified something will go wrong again," she admitted. "But we're hopeful. I'm hopeful for you too. Eleanor, if this baby makes it, we'd like to ask you something." "What's that?"
Would you be part of their life? Would you be Grandma? My throat tightened. I'd love that. Not living with us, Daniel clarified quickly. We've learned that lesson. But visits, babysitting, being an actual grandmother. On boundaries we all agree to, Rachel added. Yes, I said. On boundaries we all agree to. 18 months after reclaiming the house. My grandson was born on a Tuesday. James Daniel. 8 pounds, perfect, beautiful. I held him in the hospital and felt something in my chest unclench, a knot of anger and hurt I'd been carrying for almost 2 years. He's beautiful, I whispered. He looks like Dad. My dad, your husband. He does. Rachel, exhausted but glowing, said, Eleanor, we want you to be as involved as you want to be. We'll bring him to visit you. You can come visit us. Whatever works. What about the house? I asked. Does it bother you that I got it back? Daniel and Rachel looked at each other. Some silent communication passed between them. Honestly, Daniel said, it bothered me for a long time. I felt like you were punishing us. But now I understand. We needed to learn to stand on our own. If we'd kept the house, your house, we'd always have been dependent, always waiting for the next handout. This way, we're building something ourselves. We're actually grateful, even though it was awful at the time. It taught us to value what we have because we earned it.
Daniel and Rachel bought their first house. Nothing fancy, a small 3-bedroom in a decent neighborhood. But it was theirs. Bought with their own down payment, their own mortgage, their own effort. I attended the housewarming party they threw. What do you think, Mom? Daniel asked, showing me around. I think it's perfect. I think you should be proud. We are. And Mom, thank you. For what? For not letting us get away with what we did, for fighting back, for teaching us that lesson. He looked around his modest house. If you just accepted being kicked out, if you'd let us keep your house, we'd still be entitled assholes who thought we deserved things we didn't earn. This house, our house, we appreciate it because we know what it took to get here. You're welcome. Later, watching James toddle around the backyard, Rachel sat next to me. Eleanor, I need to tell you something about the house, your house. What about it? I used to dream about you leaving it to us, used to imagine how we'd renovate it, expand it, make it ours. She watched James chase a butterfly. But I don't dream about that anymore. I'm happy with what we have. And I hope you live in that house for another 40 years. That's very generous of you. It's not generous, it's honest. She smiled. You taught me that ownership means nothing if you didn't earn it. This house? We earned it. Your house? You earned it. And I finally understand the difference. 3 years after reclaiming the house, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Early stage, treatable, good prognosis, but still cancer. Daniel and Rachel showed up at my hospital room the day after my surgery. Mom, you should have called us sooner, Daniel said, his face pale. I'm fine. They caught it early. Still, you shouldn't have gone through this alone. I wasn't alone, Daniel. I had Martin, my attorney, some friends from book club. I'm not alone, Daniel. I'm just independent. Rachel sat on the edge of my bed. Eleanor, would you let us help you during recovery? We could bring James over to keep you company, bring you meals, whatever you need. I appreciate that, but please, let us be family, real family, the kind that shows up. I looked at my son and his wife, at the people who'd thrown me out and then learned from their mistakes, at the people who'd built their own lives and were now offering to support me in mine. Okay then, I said. But just during recovery, I'm not moving in with you, and you're not moving in with me. Deal, Daniel said, and we all laughed. 4 years after reclaiming the house, epilogue. I was 67 years old when I updated my will. Martin sat across from me in his office. You're sure about this? I'm sure. The new will was specific. The house would go to Daniel upon my death, but not free and clear. It would go into a trust, with James as the beneficiary. Daniel and Rachel could live there, but they couldn't sell it or take out loans against it. It would stay in trust until James turned 25, at which point he'd had the choice, keep the house or sell it, entirely his decision. Why? Martin asked. Because Daniel's earned his way back into my life. He's proven he's changed. But I want to make sure he never forgets the lesson that property matters, that ownership comes with responsibility, that you don't take advantage of people who trust you. And if Daniel doesn't want these terms, then the house goes to charity and he gets nothing. But I think he'll accept them because they're fair. I told Daniel about the will at Sunday dinner, a tradition we'd started rotating between my house and theirs. You're leaving me the house? In trust, with conditions. You can live in it, but it belongs to James. To make sure you remember that homes aren't just assets, they're legacies. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then, that's fair. More than fair. Mom, thank you. You're welcome. Rachel said, Eleanor, I hope you know we're not waiting for you to die. We're happy in our house. We don't need yours. I know, but I want to make sure James has options. And I want to make sure the house stays in the family without being used as a piggy bank. It's perfect, Daniel said. Later after dinner, as I was leaving, Daniel walked me to my car. Mom, I know I've said this before, but I need to say it again. Thank you for fighting back, for not letting us get away with treating you badly. We're better people because you refused to be a doormat. You're welcome, sweetheart. And Mom, I hope you live in that house for another 30 years. I hope James is married with kids before he even has to think about inheriting it. That's my plan. I drove home to my house, legally and completely mine, and thought about the journey. 4 years ago, Daniel had thrown me out, thinking the house was his. I'd fought back, reclaimed it, and taught him a lesson he desperately needed. And now we had something better than we'd started with, a real relationship built on respect instead of obligation. The inheritance trap I'd set hadn't just reclaimed my property, it had reclaimed my dignity and taught my son that family means more than convenience or inheritance. It means showing up, being honest, respecting each other, and never, ever assuming that love means you can take advantage of someone. I'd learned that lesson the hard way, and so had Daniel, but we both survived, and we were better for it.